Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's Tuesday Night Live. Nathan Birch here from the B.Invested headquarters. Today, got some interesting things to talk about, some news articles, some things that are happening out there. I'll wait for a few of you guys to hop online, get into this Facebook Live, and we'll get into the obvious discussion, which will be the first part of it, which is the elephant in the room. It is now the 5th of July, 2022, and we have seen the third consecutive rate hike of 50 basis points, so 0.5% today, which, if we go back 3 months ago, or really about 70 days ago, interest rates, not even 70 days ago, interest rates were 0.1%, and now what would they be at today? 70, 125, 135, so 135 basis points. So it's gone up 13 times in 13 times what it was in a period of 70 days. So let's just put that in perspective, right? When we start looking at inflation, we start looking at all the things that are happening out there. We're still not back to where we were 2 years ago or 3 years ago when interest rates started to fall in June 2019. But here we are, 70 days, 65 days, whatever it's been, interest rates have gone up almost to that level, still not to that level, and they were like that for about 4 or 5 years. A lot of people are scared about it. I am not, and I will get into that today. First thing that I want to discuss with you, this is the 30-day Interbank cash rate future implied yield curve. So this here is readily available on the ASX website. And this is what I based all my predictions on over the previous sort of 11, 12, 13 years, since about 2009, when I started doing YouTube videos and videos out there in the public. So looking at this, this here I find to be accurate to about 3 months in advance. The longer end generally pulls back forward. And you can tell the sort of directions that it moves in. Generally, sometimes it'll be flat, sometimes it'll be down, sometimes it'll be up. Just going to mute my phone here for you guys. But something that I am noticing, which is very interesting, is that our rate obviously is around here right about now, maybe a little bit higher. So it was 85 basis points at a half on, so it's 135. So it's sitting around here right now. They've been pretty aggressive with it today, but you can see pretty clearly their direction is that the view of their monetary policy at the moment is to increase rates. It says here it'll hit 3.4%, but do I believe it will hit that? I don't believe that they could have put more than 0.5% or 50 basis points from the start. And I said that when they do, it'll be a 6 months, 12 months, 24 months period before we see everything crashing down. So looking at this sort of level here, it could go up another 0.25%, another 0.5%, maybe another 75 basis points, maybe another whole percent. What does it really do for people out there in the market? Firstly, it spooks the market, which is great. But after that, we're going to see some interesting things. So I'm going to get onto that very shortly. One thing that I note over the last sort of 7 to 10 days that has occurred is if we look at the top end or the tail end of this yield curve, which is showing out to November 2023, we're now seeing that back end looks like it's tapering off, which is interesting because I think that we'll start seeing them fall over the coming months as we enter into lower depths of the recession that we're already in. People don't realize, everyone realizes that it's fucked, but the people who watch the TV and believe in the news and all that sort of stuff, they're not understanding of what's going on here. But as we progress, I would expect to see this tail end come back down, and you'll start seeing what I talked about when I said this cycle that we're in will last maybe 12 months, maybe 24 months, maybe only 6 months. It's not we've got a problem out there, which is obviously inflation, but it's a cure for that, which is where everyone's stuck. So moving on to my articles for today, keep the questions coming through. If you're liking it, smash up the likes, share it with your friends, share it with the community, would be greatly appreciated. First article here I want to share with you um, is this, and we've talked about it. This is a news.com article. It is from, what date is it from? The 4th, so yesterday it was posted. Goes on to read, date, Coles and Woolworths will likely increase prices as inflation is set to rise. That's the article. You can go watch it on news.com. Article, 2 of the major supermarkets could be weeks away from unleashing price hikes on shoppers in a move that's been months in the making. 2 of Australia's biggest supermarkets are likely to implement sweeping price rises just in weeks, despite many shoppers already facing cost of living pressures. As reported, the Australian, the Coles, Woolworths will be pushed to increase prices in response to requests from suppliers. Measuring household inflation, the figure increased by 2.1%, reflecting a year-on-year rise of 5.1%. The biggest quarterly increases were reflected on fuel, 11%, with grocery food products increasing by 4%. Under negotiation process, supermarkets have a 30-day window to review price rise requests, with Woolworths also implementing a policy which seeks a 10 to 12-week notice of a nominated effective date for price increase. Recently, Coles chief executive Stephen Kane said the company had received 5 times as many requests for price rise increases that we had the last year. He credited the request to factors such as labour crisis, the cost of raw materials, the cost of fuel, and cost of utilities. As a result, Coles was reported an inflation of 3.3% across all prices over the third quarter, which Woolworths reporting a figure of 2.7%. Despite attempts from the Reserve Bank of Australia to quell inflation by increasing the official cash rates, it is expected the CPI will increase once again as results are announced in late July and September. While the target rate is set at 2 to 3%, the Reserve Bank Philip Lowe feared it could spike a 32-year high of 7%. That's inflation, it is. In late June, Treasurer Jim Chalmers said he expected inflation to be significantly higher than expected, even through the current levels are sitting at the highest since 2001. So as we go on to read that, we've now got, they're trying to curb inflation, right? They're trying to curb inflation. So what they do is that they push up the interest rates, which means that now the businesses have a higher cost base to their business because they have to then pass that cost on. We're now seeing that petrol is rising. We're now seeing that labour is rising. Now we're seeing that rents are rising. So it's not just rents in residential properties, but rents in commercial properties that are rising as well. Then now we've got that being passed on via food, which is now causing more inflation. And you can start to see the trend here, which is the more of the more. So interesting times. This is why I believe that we can't see it going up. So we go and read this article. This one here is from MSN. Bankrupt Sri Lanka's inflation jumps beyond 50%. Sri Lanka's inflation hit a 9th consecutive record in June. Official data showed Friday rising 54.6%, a day after the IMF asked the bankrupt nation to rein in galloping prices and corruption. Apparently it's corruption over there, but here it's because of Ukraine and it's because of all these different other things. It was the first time the increase in the Colombo Consumer Price Index crossed the psychologically important 50% mark, according to the Department of Census and Statistics. The figures came hours after the International Monetary Fund urged Sri Lanka to contain spiralling inflation and address corruption as part of efforts to salvage the troubled economy, which has been ravaged by a foreign exchange crisis. The IMF ended 10 days of in-person discussions with Sri Lankan authorities. The CCPI has been sitting new monthly highs since October, when year-on-year inflation stood just at 7.6%. In May, it reached 39.1%. So just look at these things, right? Because I remember going back 6 months ago, inflation was transitory. It was because of Corona. It was because of China. It was because of supply chain issues. Now it's because of Ukraine. It's because of climate change. It's because of LGBTIQ+. It's because of whatever. But now we're seeing it roll out like this. So looking at it, year-on-year inflation stood at 7.6%. In May, it reached 39.1%. That is where we're heading. Inflation will remain high until a final market capitulation, says Komal Sri Lankan Kumar. Private economists say consumer price rises are rising even faster than shown in official statistics. According to the economist Johns Hopkins University, Stephen Hankey, sounds like, what is it, South Park, Mr. Hankey, the Christmas poo, who tracks price increases of the world's trouble spots. Sri Lanka's current inflation is at 128%, second only to Zimbabwe's 365%. How come every country is losing its currency? That is the question, right? That is the question. It's going to be interesting, and I think that these countries, as they go through their cycles, right, they were only at 7.6% in October 2021. Today they're at 39.1% in March. So that took 6 months, 7 months, whatever it is, for that to blow out of control. Looking at it, what are they going to be doing with the interest rates? Keep an eye on it. Just like we saw in Turkey with the lira. Why banks are cutting some interest rates on variable home loans. So this is another article here, news.com. This is an interesting one that I saw the other day. You may be surprised to see some banks have cut interest rates on home loans. There is often a catch. Here's why you should pick up the phone. So I'm not going to go through this too much, but it goes in to read, Commonwealth Bank cut its lowest variable rate on Thursday by 0.15%. ME Bank also cut some of its variable rates on Tuesday. Macquarie Bank cut variable home loans up to 25 basis points last week, and ANZ made a similar move back in May. This is what has happened. So what we're seeing at the moment is a big rush and fear of, imagine if you owned a bank, right? How mad would owning a bank be? But imagine you own the bank and then you want to lock everyone in at a higher rate. Let's think that interest rates are going to come down, right? You wouldn't want to lock in all your rates at the lower levels. You would want to try and get them at a higher point. What you would do, right, is a little bit of fear, wouldn't go too far. And sorry, just got lots of messages popping through here. You would be severely advantaged, right, by locking everyone in these higher rates. So everybody's now fearful, fixing their interest rates, but not realizing that there's multiple things at play here. So we've got people fixing the interest rates, where the bank, you're taking a bet against the bank's now lowering the interest rates, which is their spread that they're giving back, or, not taken off you, should we say. Then we look at Sri Lanka, right? People aren't making the connection here. We've got inflation going so high. So if this inflation goes so high, we're going to end up like Sri Lanka, and interest rates will not continue the trajectory up. What happens if interest rates, the question I ask everyone is, what happens if interest rates go to zero, or what happens if interest rates go to negative 2%? How would you benefit at that point? This cycle that we are going through, they're trying to solve inflation by doing what they used to do, which is playing with interest rates and stopping currency creation. However, it will not work this time, right? And that's the interesting thing. They cannot manipulate that. Talking about manipulating things, I just thought of throw this in, right? This is something really, really interesting. This has got nothing to do with property, but it's something that everybody should be very concerned about. This here is in a place called Weipa, which is near Cooktown in the Cape York region of Australia. You got sort of Townsville, Cairns, Cooktown, Weipa right up the top, Papua New Guinea. They say that amazingly that rain has been occurring. I went out to drive down a few of my roads today around my house, and I was surprised to see how much, because it doesn't look like it's raining that much, but it's just, consistent rain hitting everywhere. Every road was flooded, right, around me. So looking at it, where did all this stuff come from? The market, when we look at the control and how fake all this stuff is, this one is just a really random one. And I like to share this stuff every now and then, because you need to question, right, things, because if you think that this is too whacked up, well, it might be, right, and I apologize for that. But on the own government's website, go to the government web pages, go and look up cloud seeding. Cloud seeding is a real thing. It's weather control, it's weather manipulation. It is used as a weapon. They can use it as a weapon. But this was a cloud, right? So when you see on the Bureau of Meteorology, what is it? The uh, powered by the Department of Resources, Department of Environments, and I think it's the Bureau of Meteorology. It'd have normally like some clouds and shit. You can see in here, there's a few clouds and stuff like that. But the question I ask is, what is that? Why does it look like that? It's picking up like a radar of all clouds in the sky and what chemicals that are inside of that, which gives them these things. Is that a blip on the radar, or does it look like some sort of controlled, cloud seeding operation? Just a random one. If you think it's a bit out there, it probably is. Don't worry about it. Go back to drinking your coffee, having your dinner, whatever you're watching. If you think it looks a bit weird and you go, fuck, that doesn't sound right, Nathan, if you could sit there in the comments and say you're off your head, stop talking crack, and stop smoking joints. You could say that, or you could just be like, well, maybe I'll do a bit of research into it and find out what cloud seeding is, and could work out that there could actually be stimulus packages. So I was thinking beforehand, JobKeeper, right? We had lockdowns, JobKeeper, all that sort of stuff. And then I realised that everyone's getting these flood grants and different types of grants. So it's another way of flushing money through the environment, through the economy by doing such things such as grants and different things like that. So cloud seeding, weather control, HAARP, HAARP. Here is another article getting back to finance and property stuff. So this one here is from the AFR, I believe it is. I think it's the AFR. It looks like the AFR. Markets bet central bankers will soon end the inflation crusade. Ooh, surprise, surprise. Right? This was on July the 4th. This was yesterday. We have been talking about that for 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, that they will try to stop inflation, but they can't. They will have to reverse their monetary policy. So what we are seeing here is called monetary policy, and it's a change in monetary policy. So they've gone from a tightening, from a relaxed environment to a tightening environment, and they will change it back to a more of a relaxed environment shortly. Let's read this article. It's quite good. It's becoming increasingly clear conquering it means a sharp economic downturn. Investors are betting the decision makers will throw in the towel, while homeowners groan under the weight of a rising mortgage market and brace themselves for years of pain. Financial markets have suddenly turned much more optimistic. Oh wow, we're looking at the bond market and it's turning the opposite direction because they can't do this. It's mathematically impossible. Increasingly, they're of the view central bankers' enthusiasm for clamping down on inflation with aggressive rate hikes will evaporate as economic activity falters and global share markets tumble. Signs of economic fragility and profile proliferating last week, the closely watched Atlanta Fed's GDP now estimate of real gross domestic product was slashed to negative 2.1% annual rate in the second quarter. So at the moment we're seeing inflation, we're seeing GDP go crazy. What about when we start seeing it go negative? This is going to cause the actions that they're doing with all these policy changes, with monetary policy, is going to see us enter into a massive, massive recession, which is what I called many years ago, called the global financial depression, the GFD. They either take the bullet as a massive depression, or we go back and let things run the course, which will end up in a hyperinflation. They've shown their hand many, many times over. Time will tell and common sense will prevail. Investors believe that for all central bankers' tough talk, and last week the head of the US Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, repeated that although there was a risk of aggressive rate hikes could spark a recession, a worse mistake could be failing to curb inflation. They quickly change their tune when they are confronted with the reality of a shrinking economy. As a result, bond markets are now trimming their expectations for future Fed rate hikes. Oh, surprise, surprise, we're now starting to see that. It's very slight. It's very, very slight here, but it is not on this trajectory. So the markets are already starting to factor it in. Remember, if you're watching this now, 30-day interbank cash rate futures implied yield curve on the ASX website. Keep an eye on that and start seeing the direction. That longer end of the tail will come forward very, very quickly, just as it did on the way up, and they will not be able to hold that back. Similarly, the yield on benchmark US 10-year bonds dropped 24 basis points last week to 2.89%, a sharp fall from its peak of 3.48% almost 3 weeks ago. So a 0.5%, the tail end, the end of it, had fallen by 0.5%, which is in a 3-week period. So imagine what it would be like over 3 months. That's where we're going to see the fun. The bad news is for highly geared households and businesses, however, it is likely to take some time for central bankers to change tack. Well, we've just seen 3 months of rates going up, or 70 days or whatever, right? It's literally 2 months that, 3 months have occurred, but it's only really 70 days since those decisions were made. And we've seen our rates go up 13 times, right? From 10 basis points to 135 basis points today. So how quickly can this turn around? Is it going to happen tomorrow? If you want to take my prediction, right? Let's take this prediction time. And everyone likes when I come out and say, people go, oh, what do you think is going to happen here? What's going to happen here? This is no financial advice. All of the governing bodies can, get stuffed because this is not, we're just having a chat. I'm just giving my stupid opinion. I'm a crazy guy on the internet giving you my thoughts and feedback. But my view is that we are somewhere around September 2019 when the market started to crumble before they needed to intervene by putting stimulus packages in place. If you remember September 2019, that's when the markets crashed. And it was around February when we saw, stock markets, crypto markets, every sort of market. I think it was oil was like negative $10 a barrel or something like that, crazy. I think that would be at the time of about September 2019 right now. And my thoughts would be somewhere around October to November this year is when we'll start seeing a big crash globally. And we will then start seeing the reverse of the tightening cycle that we're in. So that would mean it would only be a 6-month period, but they wouldn't, drop the rates instantly. They'd take some this month, some next month, some the month after. So if you could go back to 2020, right, or February 2020, and go, if I could load up, whether it be Bitcoin at $3,000, whether it be properties or whatever they're worth, whether it be shares, whatever they're worth, whether it be silver, gold, oil, whatever the case may be, what would you have done at that period of time? Because I really believe that we're somewhere between September 2019 and February 2020 coming up. And I think that period would be later in this year. I could be wrong, but I'm just an idiot on the internet talking about stuff that I've been finding other idiots on the internet talking about, like these reporters in the news articles. So just my thoughts. The bad news for, we've read that, as a result, they'll face further tightening pain in the short term. Economists expect Fed officials to raise interest rates by 75 basis points at its meeting towards the end of the month. Similarly, the Reserve Bank Board is likely to raise interest rates by 50 basis points on its meeting on Tuesday. Reserve Bank boss Philip Lowe, blah, blah, goes on to talk about what has happened today. So here we are with this mainstream media garbage going out there and saying that there's a very strong chance that interest rates will go backwards and monetary policy will change very, very shortly. Time will tell, common sense will prevail, but one thing's for sure, if you calculate all the debt that's sloshing around in the system and then think about how could all the businesses survive, whether that be your business, my business, Woolworths, Coles, Bunnings, whatever the case may be, by them doing this, right, by tightening so aggressively, there is too much debt from every consumer, from every single end user, from every corporation out there, that something has got to crack. And we're already starting to see things crack out there, which takes me on to our 5th article of today. Collection House calls in administrators. Was Vault collapse the spark? So this here is an article about Collection House. So if you're not familiar with it, one of the largest debt collection agencies called Collection House, which is an ASX listed company, CLH, has now filed for administrators to come in. So if you've ever had a bill that wasn't paid on time, there's the logo there. You might, you know, trigger a few memories of not paying a bill on time. We have got collection house in administration. We have got a bank called Vault. So there's a thing called neobanks, which are these new banks. They're online banks. There's a lot of different neobanks out there. So one of the newest banks in the country has collapsed this week, has gone into administration. Collection house has gone into administration. And looking at it, there's two more companies that have gone under. So you know that things are pretty fucked when the debt collection agency can't even collect its debts and has to file for administration. Where are we heading to, right? The debt collection agencies can't even stay afloat. So just be really mindful that when you are making decisions, this is a bet, and this is a time that none of us have seen, but it has happened in many different countries, cultures, backgrounds, currencies, many, many times over. It hasn't happened here. People aren't familiar with it, but it is happening. And the writing is very, very clear, very, very evident. And And it takes me on to the other side. People say, okay, what happens, Nathan? What happens when, the world crashes and burns and there's no more currency. Let's say the Aussie dollar dies. Well, we look at articles like this one here, which Chinese researchers claim they've built in and tested artificial intelligence capable of reading minds. So what are you talking about, Nathan? Are you talking about your wacky weather predictions again anymore? No. What I'm talking about is your social credit system. Whilst everyone's been fearful of getting this done for themselves, right? Getting the big old jabby, right? Look at this. I've got a little screwdriver here. We can punch holes in people's arms and pretend you've been inoculated. Anyway, whilst everyone's fearful of what's going out there in the world, no one's really paid attention to the fact that every time you go to Coles, go to Woolworths, go to Bunnings, go to any of the stores that were allowed to be open throughout the lockdowns and throughout the scam and all that sort of stuff, have you really noticed the biometric cameras that have been put around you? Have you noticed that you have to use your phone to check in on everything? Have you noticed that you've downloaded all these apps? Have you realized that you've got yourself a new wallet to be able to store your digital identity that you've signed up for? This is all the trial ground for people to start up with our new currency, which is what I talked about many, many times over, and it's getting more scarier by the week. But let's just entertain ourselves here with the news.com article. A haunting new report has outlined China's latest worrying step towards becoming the world's most complex digital dictatorship. So this article, right, you might be thinking, well, they're bagging out China here, right? That's what this article is, right? But then when you go and realize what it is gaslighting people to see people's reaction, which is what the article is actually all about, right? The new report has claimed the Chinese government is now implementing cutting-edge artificial intelligence to monitor the minds of dozens of Communist Party officials. Researchers in China claim to have developed software that can accurately analyze facial expressions yeah, whatever, right? Brainwaves to monitor subjects who are attentive and thought and political education. China's stringent police state has radically upscaled over the past decade using big data, machine learning, face recognition technology, and artificial intelligence to build what many have labelled the world's most complex digital dictatorship. Well, when you think about it, right, why is there robots in Woolworths now? Why is there a biometric camera looking at you when you check out? Why is there no cameras available to install anywhere which don't take audio in? Because every camera on the market today takes an audio. Why are they all connected to the biometrics? Who controls the biometrics? And I didn't authorize anyone to take a picture of my face, my ears, my head, or my ganter, which is how you walk, right? So if you walk like this, you can try and hide your face, but the recognition will actually pick up this guy's got a hobble or this chick's got a hobble, or however you walk. Everybody's body is positioned differently. There is ways I've been told to try and change your Ganter and all that sort of stuff when you go to the shops. Wear a wide brim hat. Try and not get yourself stuck in this. You can go full crazy, or you can just not participate in this system. It is happening, right? These guys here think they're living in a wonderful world with WeChat and bubble tea and whatever else they're doing in China, but they are in a lab, right? They're in a petri dish, just as we are here in Australia, and this is what's being installed in front of us. They're making us laugh at China, but we are just free-range communists ourselves. According to Hefei Comprehensive National Science Centre, the high-tech development would be used to further solidify their confidence in determination to be grateful to the party, listen to the party and follow the party. In a short clip, a subject was seen looking at a screen in a kiosk, scrolling through exercises promoting the party's policy. According to researchers, the technology in the kiosk was able to note the researchers' expressions and pinpoint their reaction to particular pieces of content. The Institute said it has encouraged 43 party members to research the team and take party lessons while being monitored by the new software. The video report was published on July 1st but has since vanished. On one hand, it can judge how the party members have accepted thought and political education. It's called political education. How wonderful is that? Political education. Just as is World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, and all of these other educating bodies which are here to teach us about how to get a shingles sort of thing or how to get a HIV thing, right? But I don't know who had these things before recently. Anyway, different story. It's all education, right? It's all education. President Xi, Secretary to the Communist Party and leader of the nation, Xi Jinping or whatever his name is, has determined absolute loyalty to the party, and it has previously declared a thought and political education is an essential part of the government's doctrine. Are we not being politically thought and our educated from our media that is happening out there? It's a good question to be asking yourself. Chinese state-backed publication Study Times was reporting about the development of a similar artificial intelligence back in 2019, claiming algorithms could be used to gauge the thought condition of party members and make sure content can go in the head and the heart of party members. It will truly enhance the party members' political equality and ideological thought, the publication wrote at the time. The development is but another Xi Jinping's relentless pursuit towards a technological dystopia for the world's largest nation. In certain areas of China, it is now commonplace to have a score tracked by digital social credit. Now, just think about this, right? Let's go back a second. In certain areas of China, i.e. smart cities, i.e. areas like Sydney or wherever, it is now commonplace to have a score tracked by digital credit system. Those who are deemed untrustworthy to the government risk losing basic privileges like purchasing an airfare, right? So you better get yourself a private jet. A low social credit score will also exclude you from top well-paid jobs. It will make it impossible for you to get a house or a car loan or even to book a hotel room. Well, if you have problems and you guys have really shit social credit scores, you can always hit me up and I'll get you a room at the Birch Hotel Group. Anyway, the government will slow down your internet connection. Well, if you're getting this like, you'll start wondering what's happening. It will ban your children from attending private schools and even post your profile on public blacklists for all to see. Well, who'd want to send their kids to a school if you're going to be indoctrinated like this? It's very obvious. The government has even produced a deadbeat map on an app called WeChat. Oh, there we go, WeChat. So I'm really happy. We put a little Hello Kitty emoji and drink a bubble tea and then put there the deadbeat map, which shows where identifying the user, which goes on to say, tapping on a person marked on the map reveals their personal information, including their full name, their court case number, and any other reason they've been labelled untrustworthy. The identity card numbers and home addresses are also partially shown. There are also reports from citizens whose social credit scores falls too low to accept, preemptively arrested and taken to re-education camps. So everybody's out there worried about these FEMA type camps, which are like, oh, we're putting in these health centers, these health retreats from the government, right? What are they going to be used for after the illness is gone? We should be asking ourselves these sort of questions, right? They are arresting people and sending them to re-education camps, not because they have committed a crime, because they are likely to commit a crime. Citizens can also earn points to show their faith by reporting the crimes of how volatile the new restrictions. Christians who illegally meet to pray in their private homes, or Muslim Uyghurs, I don't want to butcher that up, let's just say Muslim prayers, a spotted gathering may also be subject to a new form of tattletaling that is not only lands them in strife, but also benefits the goody two-shoes who have outlined them to the authorities. Western pushback to the social credit system has been especially fierce. In 2018, former US Vice President Mike Pence claimed China rulers aim to implement an Orwellian system premised on controlling virtually every facet of human life. Chinese back, we've already read that bit. This is where the interesting part is, because I always leave like a couple of numbers in there which are very, very crucial, right? And whenever I see certain numbers out there, it's like, let's circle around that and what's this topic really about? More than 33 million businesses in China. 33 million. Oh, yeah. Some people understand what that number is, some people won't. In China, have already begun to give a credit score under some version of the corporate social credit system, reporting outlining the consequences of a low score red. In recent weeks, China has reportedly aimed at standardizing a reward system to motivate the public to report crimes or boost their score. The formulation measures conductive and mobilized. So here we go. Citizens could get spiritual rewards in the form of certificates of appreciation up to 100,000 yuan or 21,000 Aussie dollar, depending on the usefulness of their information. So, what happens when our currency dies? Are we going to go to another type of Ponzi system, which is similar to the one that the Chinese have apparently got working over there? I believe that you've already, as a nation, we've given away our data. Our data's been taken without even opting into the system. A lot of people have opted into the system. Some people haven't opted into the system. No one's asked me for my approval to take videos of me. It's very, very bad, right? Shall we say? But the infrastructure is setting up to have some form of social credit system like this in Australia. So the next time we see the rates fall, which I believe, as I said, 3 months ago, when we were talking about the first rate hike, this will not go past 12 months, and definitely this will not go past 24 months, and it'll probably be somewhere between 12 and 24 months before we start seeing a cycle which will be very inflationary. What would cause it to be very inflationary? Put more stimulus packages in place, take away all of the tightening, the quantitative tightening that's out there, which is all these changes in monetary policy, and we will see the mother of all booms. So I see a lot of people out there fearful right now, with good reason. A lot of people didn't watch the news for the last 2 years, but are watching the news with, bated breath. They're like, wow, I'm really, what's going to happen, right? I've watched the news, they've told me this is going to happen, that's going to happen, right? People are in fear. I'm excited by that personally. I'm very, very excited, because when you have fear, there's opportunity. So with the fear that's out there in the world right now, the deals that come from that is naturally the amazing part. So I'd be more aggressive today in acquiring any type of asset than what I have been over the last 2 years, because there's less people in the market. There's more fear with whoever I'm taking the asset, purchasing the asset from, right? You know what I'm saying? There's more fear, better opportunities to be able to get offers accepted that wouldn't have been accepted in the past, better opportunities to be able to put terms in place and be able to make things happen. So very optimistic on that front. I'm going to get to your questions and comments right now. I'm going to wrap it up pretty quickly. But I do want to just throw it out there as something very unique that I did going back about 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I said that I'd do a mentoring program. and I would do it once only, and I would give you live running through the crash that was going to happen. And I only thought about the other day, going back to 2017, 2018, I talked of a lot of things that were very whacked up. They sounded very foreign, very alien like, and very weird because they were very interesting terms. Um, I talk about these things very differently today because when I started talking about them, um, I had a concern that people would be ridiculing me for it, right? And they did, right? They did. But I did actually document it all, and I put in a mentoring program which sold for about $8,000 back in the day, and it's basically a series of videos of like these Tuesday Night Lives, like the webinars that we do. There's about 100 hours of content, all different areas about um, how to negotiate properties, how to locate properties. But in each one, I'd put in like a lot of stuff like we talk about today. So the dates are different, the news articles are different, but the lead up to where we are is very important. Um, I've got for this month only, which is it was 8 grand, and it went down to 3 grand, $299. There is a link in the description box. There will be some promos on it for this month only. It was 8 grand, went down to three, just for this month only, $299. If you want to get access to that, it is a mentoring program with lots of content, lots of stuff that isn't online. You just need to go and register for it and you get it. So I thought I'd throw it out there because you might be able to pull one little gold nugget from then and be able to apply it to your life today, take advantage of the market that we're in, and do something cool for your life. So do check that out. There's a link somewhere in the description box of this. And yeah, I will get to your questions now. G'day, mate. I'm doing great, Mike. Hey, Nora. Hope you're doing well. Giuseppe, hope you're going well. Channel 7 weather had something similar on the rain. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. 100% correct. I don't know what this is regarding, but thank you. I think you got a scammer in your comments giving BTC away. Yes, guys, if there's something as well, if you guys start seeing comments saying, hey, we're giving free Bitcoin away, or someone impersonating us, we're never going to ask you unless it's on our actual website, and check the spelling of our website and the hyphens, the different things that they do. There's a lot of scammers out there. No one's asking you for Bitcoin. No one's saying that they're going to do Bitcoin courses, nothing like that. Yeah. So just be careful of scammers out there. They will try to pretend that they're us. They do it to all different people I watch out there on YouTube. I see it a lot out there, so just be very, very careful. They want to break the middle class into low class. Yes, when you are tied to the system, you are a friend in need is a friend indeed. There's a song about that. There's a friend that's better, but we won't go there. But you know, having you in need to the system, you're at servitude to the system, you need to go to the system, you need to obey the system. You don't want to be obeying the system. You don't want to be stuck at the mercy of the system. You need to take control of your own personal life, freedoms and liberties. So very, very important. Vic, hi Nathan, how can I get in touch with your team? I want to buy an investment property in Melbourne. I live in New Zealand. Is it possible with 40% deposit? I've got people in New Zealand that are buying in Australia with 20% deposits. Certainly reach out to my team. Send a message to the Facebook page here. You can call us 1300 367 925. You can send us an email at admin@binvested.com.au. Just reach out to my team, probably just sending a message, send over your contact number, your email, all that sort of stuff, and my team will be in contact very, very shortly to help you with your journey. For those of you that are new around here, we help people build property portfolios, education with different sort of different sort of financial things that we talk about. And yeah, if you need help, reach out to us. Yes, no more ATM machines. Exactly. The ATM machines have all gone. There is less and less. You go to a service station, you can't find an ATM machine anymore. It's really annoying because I've got some trades that want cash. I've got people that want cash. Unfortunately, I don't deal in cash businesses, so I don't get access to cash, so I have to go and physically get cash myself. You go to the bank and ask for 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand, 100 grand. They'll ask you like you're a criminal. Why do you want it? And all that sort of stuff. So it's very, and you go on to Austrac, if it's over $10,000, that you are depositing into a bank account. So just be very careful in the world that we're living in today. Just to clarify, the yield curve forecast is updated monthly, and the forecast could change from month to month, right? So next month it could have drastically different yield curve forecast depending on how the next month goes. No. So this 30-day yield curve interbank cash rate future, this chart that I was showing you beforehand, this actually gets updated daily. So this here changes daily. So it's very important, like quite often in times like now when things are changing, whether up or down, I take screenshots of this, maybe every couple of days, maybe every day for a week, if I see big leaps and bounds in a certain way, because then you can overlap the data. So this changes daily, generally about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. It updates and you will see where the lines sit and how they change. But do keep an eye on it on a really regular basis. So yeah. Good to see you, Nogga, mate. Good to see you guys online. Appreciate you guys tuning in and spending your Tuesday night with us. Martin North and a current affair tonight, spreading fear on rising interest rates. A friend told me he's a consultant for the big four banks. Probably nothing. You need to be very cautious of who's giving you information. I do not know Martin North. I have seen his videos. Fundamentally, with maybe 50% of the stuff I would agree on, but he lacks seriously the other 50% of it, which is, you can talk about how interest rates would go up to whatever, right? You could sell this dream, right? And it's very interesting why he's placed there. I don't know who he works for. I have heard beforehand he used to be a consultant to a bank. I don't know anything about the bloke on that front. However, I think the part where him and his friends miss out on is the fact that they are not factoring in the stimulus packages that occur, right? And I've seen them talking about the fear and house price crashes and fear porn and all that sort of stuff over the years, but they've been seriously off the mark. Fundamentally, I'd have to agree probably 50% with them, but the part where they miss is all the government goodies that they introduce, which we don't know until they introduce them, but there's a lot out there. So yeah, just be very careful. Brian, they're changing MyGov to MyGov ID, digital identity. It's really funny when you wrote there, Brian, they're changing MyGov to MyGov ID. When you take off MYG and you look at the last four digits, you just replace the MYG with a C and it looks a bit different. So yes, exactly. The digital rollout is here. Johnny said he feels for AI in China on top of a social credit system and a business credit system. I feel for people here and is scary to think we could do the same. Exactly. So the worst thing is I just got I just moved house last week and I've got 6 chickens that the owners had left there for me, and every day I'm getting like 2 chicken eggs, right? May not sound like much, but that's still like 14 eggs a week. That's like enough eggs to eat off in a week. I've heard talks about good eggs are very expensive now. Imagine if you couldn't go and feed yourself, right? The importance of having land, the importance of having access to fruit and vegetables, animals. Should you have to eat your own animals, well then that's the case. There's actually an article many years ago, and it's really, some people might get really offended by this or upset, so I'm not going to go into it too much, but it was an article about Zimbabwe as they went through hyperinflation. People actually went to the zoo and ate all of the animals from the zoo. So imagine having to not be able to eat in the system. It becomes a bit more like Demolition Man for those that are on the outside. So the day before the first rate rise, my partner signed all the paperwork to remortgage and lock in rates with our broker. It has just been rejected due to something to do with the interest rates. Is this a normal thing to do in times like this? I don't know the situation, but it can be. You have to get a certain thing called a rate lock, which would mean that you would lock your rate in on your application. So your broker could do that by locking that rate in. But if they want to change until the settlement or until the loan docs are signed, the bank has the right to reserve their rights and be able to change that and move that around. So there's a thing called a rate lock, not a fixed rate or whatever, but it's called a rate lock, I believe. So speak to your broker about that. If you need help, you can reach out to my team. We've got a dozen staff in Zinger Finance that can help with getting finance. Mark said, NWO, Mark of the Beast. It certainly feels that way. Matt, yep, can't even film your children at a swimming carnival. Label it. Yeah, exactly. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin? I'm very bullish on Bitcoin, but like everything else in the system, it is very manipulated, just like anything else out there. I think it has a great future, and certainly it gives an opportunity for people to trade that are on the outside of that system that don't want to participate in the social credit system. However, it is very manipulated. So that's why the price has now gone from 90 grand down to 30 grand Aussie, that is, and it may go down further. Stop talking, get buying. Exactly. Thanks, Nathan. You don't sound whacked. You are the only one that tells it as it is. Appreciate the honesty. Thanks, Andrea. Bill says, thoughts on director ID number. I've been told about this director ID number. People tell me to do lots of things. Doesn't mean I'm going to go do it. So I think that that's bad. The least amount of things that you can sign your life away to, you are opting into a system. So whenever you opt yourself into a system, choose right time, right place, Nathan. I was just thinking of something to talk about. If someone was to have, children or whatever they go to do, when you sign up to a birth certificate, you are basically like when my parents signed me up to a birth certificate, they think, oh, I'm going to get him a school, I'm going to get a Medicare, going to get him all these sort of things. But you're actually signing certain rights away. So every time you're signing yourself up to something, you're opting in and choosing to opt in and participate in that system. If you're not participating in the system, you're not participating in the system. So just be very careful with what you do sign yourself up to. Lawrence said, RBA said interest rates will not go up until 2024. Should they take some responsibility? People are thinking until 2024. No, they don't need to tell you anything, right? They just tell you what they feel like and they'll make up an excuse about everything. So I trust them not at all. I do not trust the government. I do not trust central banks. I do not trust corporations. I trust common sense. I trust knowledge. I trust research, and I trust common sense with that research, right? And I know when they're talking shit, and that's why I choose not to go on TV. I used to go on TV all the time, but I realized that I'm being packaged up into a product to follow a narrative. So I choose not to go in there and comment on those sort of things. So they said the interest rates were going to go up in 2019. So basically, whatever the government says, whatever the RBA says, do the opposite. There's no financial advice, just my view on how I participate in life. Hey Birchie, knowing you don't like cash, how much percentage do you recommend investors to allocating cash for maintenance on their properties? For me, in my investors, we normally sort of work around a $5,000 per property. So if you've got one property and your tenant, depending on the price, right? And depending on your sleep at night factor, some people want a year's worth of mortgages there. Some people want, nothing there. Some people know that they can get more cash next week to put as a buffer. Depends how far you want to push it. You could put $5,000 per property and know that that $5,000 would be like 3 to 6 months worth of mortgage repayments and whatever. It would give you a good sleep at night factor. If you've got 20 properties, the chance of 20 properties having a problem where you've got no tenants or problems there would be pretty minimal. So I'd try and keep it personally around $5,000 per property. Robbie, Nathan, how are you? Thanks again for putting the show on tonight. Thank you very much. I hope you're doing well and the community does appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, I am tired. I've had a very stressful week. Normally I say, yeah, I'm doing awesome, all that sort of stuff. Had a bit of a family emergency. Someone's not well, touch wood, everything is okay, but there was a bit of a health issue for someone very dear to me, which is my mother, but she is fine. But yeah, that's why I'm a bit tired and a bit out of it today. Opinda, Nathan, what are your thoughts on the Melbourne property? Plus I was moving house as well. Lots of things, very, very busy week for me this week. Which market is good for you buying now? 6 to 12 months. Thanks. I'm buying in all markets. Not buying. I'm not a big fan of the Melbourne market, but I'm buying in Perth. I'm buying in Queensland. I'm buying in Sydney. They're probably my three top picks of those markets at the moment. Yeah. Luke, Birchie, have any of the recent floods affected any of your properties? Do the floods cause any issues getting building insurance? That's the interesting thing. I've never had any of my properties or any of my investors' properties. I've bought probably 15,000 properties in the last, say, 13 years for myself and for my investors. I have never had anyone ever come to me and say that their house is flooded, and I've never had any of my properties flood myself. So I don't like buying properties that are in flood areas. So, yeah. Um, Lisa just said you can eat that rat. Yeah. Um, uh, Craig, does your company do SMSF refinance? Yes, we do self-managed super fund loans. If you do have the self-managed super fund, reach out to my team. We can help you get the loan done on that. If you're thinking of getting a self-managed super fund and do not trust dodgy super fund to look after your money, then you can reach out to my team. We can put you in contact with the right people. Nick, do you still think interest rates will come down and why? I've talked about tonight. It's physically, mathematically impossible for the market to remain in one piece with interest rates at where they are right now. Right, they have to come down. There's too much debt. Everyone will get into a lot of shit. So it's very exciting on that front. Clint, you're great to listen to. Still try and get life on track. I hope everything is right on your side, Clint. And if you need any help, reach out. And thanks for listening. Um, uh, One last question about the yield curve forecast. Is it RBA that writes the forecast up? This here is like the bond yield. So this is from the ASX, but I don't trust anything. But it is mathematical of the bonds out there and liquidity floating around. So it has been accurate in my prediction of interest rates for the last sort of 13 years. It was one of the big sort of factors of something that I relied upon. So it is quite accurate, that one. Only the first, say, sort of 3 months here is accurate. But generally, after these first 3 months, they stay relatively similar. But this here all changes and it'll either go up as per the trend or down as per the trend. So I would expect to see this trend here that's starting to taper backwards decline more quickly over the next coming months. So keep an eye out for this end and keep an eye out for it coming down. That's my thoughts on that. Hey Nathan, if someone was to pull out some equity today, wait and hold of with your cash till homes fall further than purchase, what do your thoughts be? Look, there's opportunities out there. Trying to time a market and trying to time a crash. People said that the market was going to crash in 2020, in February 2020. The market has doubled in many instances since then. And they're still waiting to go, oh, well, I'll wait for the market to crash to go and buy again. So if you can buy and you can get access to equity, buy the best things of the best value in the market as you can. What we've got here, Bill, you may need to bail on having a business. Just read on the ABRS. It's a criminal offence if you do not apply on time. ASIC is responsible for enforcing director ID offences. External links are set out in the Corporations Act. Sorry to hear about your mum. Hope she's well. Look, I don't like doing anything that is criminal, and we don't entertain any of that. I'll be guided from people, and I don't know a lot of technical stuff out there, guys. I don't know how to use lots of things on my phone. I don't know how to rebuild the motherboard on my computer, and sometimes I don't know how to do certain things which are basic. So, I need to trust on my advisors, and I will get the right advice of that. So. Thank you about my mum. Hope she does get well soon. Luke, hey Birchie, how's the feedback and interest in your proposed property fund? I haven't talked about it outside of the webinar that was on the other week, but there was a lot of people that inquired about the property fund and do want to register their interest for the property fund. I will do another video on that in time due course when to live to the public, so we'll chat about that more later. Tomorrow I do have a webinar which is on. It's how to build a large property portfolio in 2022. Make sure that you subscribe for that. You can send a message to my team and they will send you a link, or keep an eye on social media. Tomorrow there'll be lots of links going around of how to register and get into the webinar. So yeah. On that note, I've got a jet, guys. It is almost an hour. I was told to make 20-minute Facebook Live tonight. I've gone for an hour. Want to thank you again for tuning in, having me as part of your evening. As I said, mentoring program was 8 grand, was 3 grand. Well, it is 3 grand, but this month, $300, $299. Don't be a tight ass. Check out the link wherever it is. We don't do Bitcoin. We're not telling you to send us Bitcoin. No one get caught up in the scams in there. But there is, if you go back to the comment section, there is a link to the mentoring program for $299. And I just noticed that Carolyn from my office has put the link up here for you to register for the webinar. We'll catch up soon. Have a great evening. Be safe, be awesome, and fuck the system. And make sure that you take care of your own personal liberty and freedom, and make sure that in this time you get to take advantage of the rest of your life, because the world is pushing people to do what they want, not what you as an individual want. So make sure you live life on your terms. We'll catch up soon. See you tomorrow for those that are registered for the webinar. Bye for now.